Hello, 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 everyone. Hi, my name is Shalissa. I guess we're gonna go ahead and wait just a couple more minutes or a couple more seconds until we get some people on the live. But I do want to go ahead and just say, hey, everyone. If you want to go ahead and drop your name in the comments, tell us what you're here for, what you want to get out of this event. Let's create a dialogue in the chat box. Got my little bubbly drink. Let's see. Alrighty. Well, hello. Hi, my name is Shalissa, and welcome to our Sex Work Conversations. Today, I'll be your host for this evening. Before we go ahead and introduce our guests, I do want to go ahead and lay down some ground rules for tonight. Tonight, we're going to be talking about sex work, the stigma, the levels of harm reduction, and all that fun stuff. So for our audience, I'd like to go ahead and provide y'all with some trigger warnings. We're going to be having some real conversations about the realities of sex work, real conversations about those realities, and the stories that our speakers have to share as well. So with all that in mind, we're going to go ahead and give some trigger warnings for some sexual violence, sex work, abuse, things like that. For those in the chat, feel free to drop any questions that you might have in the chat box below. And our producers will go ahead and send those comments and those questions our way so that we can go ahead and get them answered on our live as well. So you have an opportunity to have your questions answered. And let's have a good time tonight. So let's start with our first guest. Let's go ahead and introduce them. And their name is Kevin Chadwick Davis. Hi there, Kevin.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Of course, we're super glad to have you. I do want to give you a moment just to go ahead and introduce yourself, where you work, what is it you do, things like that.
Okay, well, hi everyone. Thank you, Shalissa, for having me. My name is Kevin Chadwin Davis. I live in Dallas, Texas, and I work at Hiv Scares Pharmacy as a community liaison. I've been in this field of work for about 3 years in the realm of HIV. It has really changed my life. And giving me a lot of perspective on how to be a better advocate and a better person. And yeah, I look forward to having this conversation with all of you and having a good time too.
Okay, well, I'm glad you're having a good time with us too. And we're super happy to have you. So I guess let's go ahead and get started. Let's jump into this. So Kevin, go ahead and tell us your personal story, what it is about sex work that you got involved with, what it is that you have done in the past, things like that, and just how you got into the field.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna keep it real cute.
Yeah.
But a lot of people know that I'm from East Texas. I come from a really small town background. Didn't come from the most privileged background besides the color of my skin. But I did grow up relatively poor in Mineola, Texas, and there's about 5,000 people there, and not many did choose from, especially when I came out as gay when I was 14 years old. And my first experience with sex work was actually through Grindr. Had downloaded Grindr when I was 16 years old because I didn't have any friends, I didn't have any support other than my family. Had a really strong support system for my family. And even my family doesn't know these things, or my best friends today. So my first experience with sex work was through Grindr. I had someone reach out to me and offer me money to see me. And believe it or not, that person ended up being my boss later in life. In Mineola, he helped me get my first job and helped support me to get to Dallas. And here I am, I think 8 years later. I moved to Dallas for my high school sweetheart, and that didn't really work out, unfortunately. But I was able to create a life here for myself. I went through many different struggles with coming to terms with my sexuality, who I was, who I am, and I did fall into a path of alcoholism, drug abuse, and I was lost. And that is kind of what led me back into doing sex work, was to survive. I didn't have any money to pay my bills. And, I was really hard on myself. But that's, even to this day, I do sometimes rely on sex work to survive, to make ends meet here and there. And it's not something I'm ashamed of anymore. I used to be super ashamed of it, super ashamed to even talk about it. And, with my role in the community now as an advocate and as a leader, sometimes I still do feel ashamed about it because, I do advocate to prevent HIV and I do advocate for a healthy life. And a lot of people deem sex work as something that's bad. And, it's something that the LGBTQIA community deals with on a daily basis. And it's something that impacts us all. And I think it's something very important to talk about.
Well, I'm glad you are here, one, for the conversation, and then two, so thankful that you're being vulnerable with not only myself, but also our entire audience here, and sharing your story and talking about this. You had mentioned a little bit about kind of the stigma and like the shame of like engaging in sex work. Can you expand on that a little bit more?
I think we like to nit and pick at each other. Just, part of the gay community and the LGBTQIA community is just being shady, and it's fun. I mean, it's not something I hate, but I have noticed over the past few years that it can be very detrimental sometimes, and people suffer from discrimination and stigma when it comes to sex work, when really people are just either trying to have fun or trying to make ends meet. People have this underlying image of a sex worker, and it's not always just to survive. And that's something I want to make clear is it's fun too. It's not always harmful. It's not always something that should be scary. And I want to normalize that conversation because, there may be times where I have escorted in the past and it wasn't because I needed money. It's because, I was being taken care of, and there's underlying factors in my life that, where I channeled all my negative feelings into escorting, and it actually impacted my life in a more positive way than per se counseling or therapy. Therapy's not for everybody, and so I was able to channel all the things going on in my life to one direction, and it's actually made me super successful and super happy. So. Yeah.
And I love that you brought that up, this idea that sex work is more than just survival sex work, right? It's more than just having to be like out on a street corner, working a corner. Of course, that's completely valid. That's a form of sex work, but there's multiple forms of sex work. And that's not to say that because you engage in sex work that you are living an unfulfilled life, or that you are someone who is needing to engage in sex work in order to get money. Baby, it's a job. Sex work is work. To be able to do half the things that go into sex work, that is the work that you're putting in.
I completely agree. And even when I started at Hiv Scares, I was working 4 jobs, and I lost even prior to that, I will say that Hiv Scares saved my life, and I tell everybody that because before I worked at Hiv Scares, I was going down a downward spiral. And I had no clear direction of where I wanted my life to go. And Hiv Cares kind of picked me up and took care of me. And, I wanted to quit all my jobs. That was my choice, to kind of focus on my community and focus on serving the people. And that came with a price. In the beginning of anybody's stages of their career, you don't make very much. I mean, and that's not to talk down on the company, but you have to start somewhere. And that was kind of like a turning point for me, was realizing my growth within that company, but I had to make a sacrifice and I had to make a choice. And escorting was my way of making ends meet during, growing in my field and becoming a leader here. And it's something that has ultimately changed the course of my life in the most positive way. And has opened doors for me. It's provided me, places to speak about sex work, including this one. And I couldn't be more proud of that, because it is a very impactful and it's a very positive thing.
Yeah, I love that. So you kind of mentioned where it is that you work and the work that you do. And then you also mentioned, or as we know now, you engage in sex work as well, which is completely, we love to see it. But what it is that I'd like to go ahead and kind of tie in together is the two things. Because I feel oftentimes when people look at sex work and then they also look at people who work in preventative healthcare, they're like, babe, what are you doing? Like, pick one or the other. Like, you can't be doing both of them.
Right.
That's true, but it's just not true at all. So I kind of wanted to expand on that a little bit more and talk about, as we already know, that there are levels of risks that we manage, right? We're talking about harm reduction methods, of course. And so with all that in mind, what is it that you do, or how can you, as a sex worker, how can someone who's engaging in sex work do that? How can they reduce the amount of harm? What is it they can do for themselves to lower their risk?
So I just want to start by saying my experience as a sex worker is going to be completely different than someone that is Black and someone that is brown and someone that is a person of color. My risk is way less than everybody else's, and that's very clear, because I don't experience the same things that other people do. But if I can give any advice to reducing harm and reducing risk, it's to be honest. Tell your friends. Talk to people that are close to you, because that's what's really helped me in my journey, is having someone really close to me that I love, be super supportive of me and be there and be my cheerleader and just really push me to keep going. And she never judged me, and it's something that not everybody has that experience. I'm very grateful for that, because I understand that not everyone has that experience. And also, the best thing that comes out of my experience with sex work is helping my clients access these services, the same services that I access and that they have no idea about, and it has happened so many times where I'm having a conversation with my client and they ask me, what's PrEP? And I'm like, well, oh my God, let me tell you about it. This will help you alleviate all of your risk, the same risks that we face that they may not feel comfortable with talking about to anybody, because they are not, comfortable with their identity. And it's been a really cool process to link them to services as well. Link them to my doctor, link them to my pharmacy. It's been revolutionary. And like I said, my experience has been very different. And to everyone out there that does not have the same access as I do, fight for the access. One thing that I have noticed in my experience is that people don't like us at the table. People don't want to hear us. We're a token, and we're not. And we need to fight for it. There has been several instances where I have been told that I don't deserve to sit at the table, and that's a lie.
And they say that because of why exactly?
Because I have a history of sex work, not even realizing that. Not only do I still have to do it sometimes to make ends meet, but I do it while uplifting my community at the same time. I do it in a positive way, and I have positive outcomes, because that's how I view life. Not every sex work experience is going to be positive, but not everyone's going to be negative either. And it's good to highlight kind of the positives in all of this. Not everyone has the same experience, like I said, but we have to fight harder to be included, and we have to fight harder for our rights. I don't think anybody should be told that they don't deserve to sit at the table as everybody else, because our voices are just as powerful and just as strong as everyone's. So, like I said, my advice would be to keep fighting, fight the stigma, fight against the people that are pushing against you to make your voice not heard. I have done that. And I may have gotten further because I am white, but don't let the color of your skin hinder you and what people think about you, because the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, and you actually mentioned that support. You had talked about fighting stigma, and then you also talked about how you had that support going forward when it came to sex work. Can you share a little bit about how that support and how that encouragement impacted your journey and where you are now?
Yeah. Well, my best friend, her name is Sadie. She actually works with you all, but we started this journey together at Hiv Cares, and I walked into Hiv Cares knowing one person. And this is not something I have told my family or something that I'm ready to talk about. Just because my family comes from a history of trauma, I just don't want to. I want to keep my trauma over here. And deal with it in a way that is beneficial to me. But outside of family support, which I do have, Sadie was the leading person for me. And she was right next to me every day. She knew what I was going through. We used to do coupons, and we were
coupon queen.
We were doing coupons to survive, and she was even there with me sometimes when I would leave and go see a client, like to make that $100. That'll help us get through the next week. And also, believe it or not, my boss, like my director, like I was able to be very vocal and very honest with him about the struggles I was going through, and he said, "Oh, girl, yeah, I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to discriminate against you." And he understood where I was coming from. And that's something that also kind of pushed me in a positive way, because usually in the workplace, if you tell your boss that, they're like, "Oh no." You get kind of a pushback, and people do judge you and people discriminate against you. So the fact that I was able to avoid all of those things was kind of a miracle. And it has elevated me as a person, because that support system has allowed me to grow and impact people in a positive way, and has allowed me to even do things like this.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of people get to sit on a platform and talk about being a sex worker that works in the community, because it's not something that's normal, and it's not something that people expect. And that's completely fine with me. You don't have to expect that from me, but it is what it is, and I am who I am. And I am not going to be ashamed of that, because it's made me the person that I am, and the person that everyone looks up to, and the person that is leading these initiatives in this community. So it's very important to me to share that message.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so we had also talked a little bit about, briefly discussed it in when we were talking about the work that we do, sex work as well, how those two can go hand in hand with one another. And you briefly mentioned PrEP. Can you tell me a little bit about PrEP and what that was like for you?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So I guess I get excited about this because it's something that has empowered me for almost 3 years. I had no idea where to get PrEP until I worked at Hiv Scares and people showed me the way. Sometimes it takes that little hand holding to get you there. And that's what happened to me. In my role, I got to learn about patient assistance programs and pre-exposure prophylaxis, and how PrEP, impacts the community, and how empowering it can be to hold that pill bottle in your hand and take that pill every day, and know in the back of your head that you don't have to be afraid anymore. I grew up in a really small town, and I had no resources but stigma regarding HIV. I thought I was going to die, if I were to have sex with anyone. And it kind of limited me. It really did. I had several HIV scares, 16 to 18 years old. Imagine like this poor little kid that has no idea what the hell is going on, And
a lot of that comes from a lack of just information, and when it comes to the areas that we grow up in, right? Like you had mentioned, coming from a small town, the likelihood of a doctor there, or the likelihood of someone who on the street corner knows about what PrEP is. And for those of us that don't know what PrEP is in the audience, PrEP is the once-a-day pill that you can take to help reduce your risk of contracting HIV. If you take it daily, it's been proven to be up to 99% effective. So it's a blocker. What it essentially is, what it does, it goes around to like your healthy T cells, puts like hats on top of them. So anytime HIV tries to come around and attach itself in it and infect those healthy T cells, it can't do it. So that's just a quick little tidbit of information for y'all. But sorry to cut you off. Continue.
Yeah, I remember the time that I got my little PrEP bottle and I took my first pill, and Sadie was actually right next to me when I did it. And the look on my face was just like priceless, because I don't know, I felt like I finally had gotten my health in control again, and I was able to fully grasp my sexuality and go out and have fun. It's that sex is supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be something that limits you and your choices. And going back to being in that space where I was so naive and so undereducated about HIV, to now being able to take a pill to prevent HIV was just like a full circle moment for me. And even to this day in my role, I'm able to go back home and provide the education that I wish I had, and it's such an empowering thing. I'm not sure if a lot of people know this, but I've been asked to do billboards in East Texas, and I still get texts and calls to this day for PrEP, promoting PrEP in that region. And I got a call yesterday saying, "Kevin, I just saw you on a billboard for PrEP. What the hell is going on?" And I'm able to provide that. I'm able to show that there are resources, and it's easier than we used to think it was.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love that. I'm loving the conversation that we're having. I'd like to go ahead and introduce another speaker for us to join the conversation with me and Kevin. Our next speaker is going to be Michele. Hey there. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm actually Alexandria LaRue.
My goodness, I have my order mixed up. Hello.
Hello, that's okay. Pronouns they, them. Nice to meet you.
Perfect. Nice to meet you as well. Well, go ahead and introduce yourself, Alexandria.
Sure. My name is Alexandria LaRue. Pronouns they, them. I'm the co-executive director of chapters for SWOP USA. That's the Sex Workers Outreach Project. We're a national nonprofit with satellites all over the United States that are autonomous chapters that are helping their communities attain goals, resources for sex workers.
Oh, I love that. Okay. Well, I just want to go ahead and tie in a little bit of what we've been talking about with Kevin. Was there anything within our conversation that we had earlier that really resonated with you that you like to add in, or that something that you felt like, ooh, I want to go ahead and put my 2 cents on this one?
Honestly, what you said about shame and like not being shameful about it and feeling like you don't have to hide anymore, it's very equal for me, like very much the same for me, having those same feelings now in my life, currently in my life.
It took a long time to get here.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Kevin. We're going to go ahead and just move into me and Alexandria for right now. We'll bring you back at the end. But let's go ahead and jump into this, Alexandria. Go ahead and let's talk about our story.
Okay, sure. I started doing or engaging in sex work when I was a minor, when I was 14. I had an alcoholic parent that was supposed to be taking care of me, and I wanted to get out of there as fast as I could.
Yeah.
And at the time, I'm 33 now. I keep forgetting how old I am. My wife makes fun of me for it. I forget how old I am. I'm 33 now, I think. Don't quote me. Back then, it was such an ordeal just to be in the home with somebody like that. It was so volatile and unpredictable. And I knew I needed to make a way for myself to get money. And there were a couple times where my money got usurped by her, but in that meantime, I eventually got enough money to get away, actually, to East Texas. I lived in East Texas for a while, and I was still working there and trying to have another job, working somewhere else, and trying to go to school. And at this time, I was like 18 or 19. I went between being unhoused to kind of having housing, to being unhoused to kind of having housing, and I knew street-based because that's where I started with street-based, and that's where I was the most comfortable. And then eventually I found out that people were doing things online, so I could meet people more safely, not necessarily more safely, but in a different way than I was meeting them.
Yeah.
And then eventually I started doing some online work, and that helped me find other people, because we're a small, big world of people. And so now in my life, most of my friends are sex workers, if not all of them. Most of them,
Yeah.
I would say. Probably like a good 85 to 90% are sex workers, and the rest are
A good group of gals, a good group of gals.
Say it again?
I was like, a good group of gals to be around, of course.
Oh yeah, like they're the best squad.
Yeah, and I think
the whole team is pretty inside out.
There you go. Yeah. What was I going to say? So you had talked a little bit about how you started out doing street work and moved on to online. And I feel like with the coronavirus and the pandemic that we've gone through, we've also kind of seen that happen on like not necessarily a global scale, but a global scale, you know, in terms of like having that big shift. Can you talk a little bit about what that experience was like for you, going from doing street work to going into doing things more online based?
Honestly, it was very, I've always been very like technology based. Like that's how my mind works. Everything is kind of like a puzzle and it fits together, and then I'm able to understand it. So like programs and websites, I'm usually pretty good with, but it was just like, it kind of blew my mind the first time what all was out there and what all was available, because I didn't even think to look. That wasn't even a thought, to go online and see what other people are doing. That wasn't a thought, because I was so used to working by myself.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. But that is just, yeah. Can you talk a little bit about how, or what was so you said going from in-person to online, was there any differences in terms of being able to, I feel like when it comes to having something more online based, there's a little bit more control in terms of being able to negotiate what it is, negotiate with clients, negotiate with services that are offered, things like that. Is there any truth to that or any validity?
I would say that there's some on that, especially being a Black sex worker. Clients are less nice to you. Trying to get things out of them is very difficult. And sometimes having that online space is exactly the amount of distance, proximity-wise, that you need from them in order to try to get something. But even with that, it's not always a guarantee. It's just, the Eurocentric standard of beauty is such, the whiter you are, the more blonde you are, the more thin you are. And, I'm a big person, and that's not where I live. It's not the realm where I live. So trying to do things in that manner to even try to even introduce the word negotiate, that's an amount of privilege I have not been afforded too much in my life.
Yeah. All right. Can we talk a little bit about, so you had mentioned that you had started out with street work. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, it was survival sex work, but I think a lot of people forget that a lot of things are survival sex work. And
can you define some of those things in some of those ways?
Sure, like working indoors as an escort, you could be doing survival sex work. Really, it depends on how much money you need, how fast you need it, what's due, how your money flow is, because a lot of people are paycheck to paycheck. A lot of people are, $50 to $50, $100 to $100. So it's, survival is, subjective. But like when I was out there, honestly, I felt more confident about what I was doing as far as I'm here to do a job. This is the job I have to do. It's to make this X amount of money so I can go home. I'm ready to make this X amount of money so I can go home. And it was always that, because, you don't know who you're going to run into, that kind of thing, in harm reduction and, however people want to phrase it, as far as like what helps you feel safe while you're working. It's always so personal, and it changes from person to person.
It absolutely does, especially when it comes to what it is that you're doing, what it is that, like harm reduction changes from person to person, because the things that I would do to reduce harm for myself are not something that someone else would do, right? Like the two things that we would be doing would not be the same at all, oftentimes. So I guess let's talk a little bit about that in terms of harm reduction and what it is that, the things that, how you reduce harm for yourself.
Consistency. I would have the same routine, going to, the same places, even whatever kind of sex work I'm doing, I always have a routine of how I do things. And sometimes those parts of the routine are boundaries, like, I won't do this or that, or I won't go out for this or that, or if somebody contacts me online and they say this or this, that's no good. I don't want to give myself the trouble or, the possibility of such. So I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
But it would be it's like a routine. And that routine, besides trusting my own gut, has kept me safe for this long, at least, and knock on wood.
Yeah. And honestly, like with instincts, gotta listen to them.
Your gut will keep you safe
most
of the time. And if you have the option, if you have the privilege and ability, not all money is good money. You feel me? Like if you have the privilege to say no to it, say no to it.
Yeah.
If you don't, make sure you got your protocols. You got, a good Judy to check in with here, somebody to check in with here. You dropped a pin there. Somebody knows where you're at. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
that's so important.
I was going to say, can you talk a little bit about that in terms of like the routine, the steps to have in place afterwards for anyone that's watching that might be participating in sex work, these are things that might not know these kinds of things coming from someone who's a little bit more experienced in the field. Yeah.
Well, I can't tell, too much without, saying too much, but I will say that I always made sure, as far as like my own hygiene and that kind of thing, was always together. If you're going to go out, if you're an outside person, make sure you pack that backpack right, that you got the things that you got in it. Make sure your phone is charged, having an extra charger. But for real, dropping pins. Drop a pin where you were at last.
Yeah.
Tell somebody where you were at. Share your location with somebody you trust. You got a good Judy somewhere. You got a good friend, somebody that you really mess with, and like they're your homie. Key to your house type situation. Have your location shared, because it's about making sure we're all okay.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Look at those. Those are fantastic. So we talked a little bit about how, for you in your situation, but also just for a lot of folks in general, living nowadays is very much like a paycheck to paycheck for a lot of folks, or $50 to $50, or $100 to $100 for a lot of folks, because things aren't changing, and for a lot of folks, like minimum wage still $7.25, not even $15 an hour. $15 an hour is still not even livable for a lot of folks, and for the minimum wage here in America now. So when it comes to things like that, can you talk a little bit about how, or defining the words vanilla jobs,
A vanilla job is anything that's a non-sex work job, a non-adult job. So like a cashier at a grocery store, that would be a vanilla job, a receptionist or an administrative something, that's a vanilla job. Engineer, vanilla job,
Okay. And then, so now that we've gone ahead and defined that, can we talk a little bit more about the not discrepancies, but the differences between having a vanilla job and working paycheck to paycheck from there to being someone who is participating in sex work and trying to either get through the month, get through the week, get through the end of the day, and how stigma and discrimination has affected you differently than it might affect someone who is working one of these vanilla jobs?
Honestly, I've had vanilla jobs for a lot of my life, except when it got to 2014. I had a big flare and a disability that I have. I didn't know it at the time, but it caused me not to be able to work a vanilla job. And so the safety of vanilla job is like you have something down on paper. You can get a paper trail, apartments, cars, stuff like that. But it's not the end all be all. It's not, you have to do this. There's just discrimination that could be involved if they decided to Google, or look up or go out of their way, or, that kind of thing. Like they found you at the club, working, they found your subscription page, that kind of thing. But for me personally, I've always just tried to, especially when I had vanilla jobs, lay as far under the radar as I could so they would never find it, because I know they would fire my black ass, period.
Yeah, and Kevin touched on this as well, in terms of having a completely different experience not solely based off of, but largely based off of just their race and the privilege of being white and the privilege of being male presenting as well, right? So let's explore that a little bit more.
Yeah, it's hard because it's like I have to hide certain aspects of myself from people who aren't ready yet, basically, as I like to call them, people who aren't ready yet to receive the blessing that is me.
And I love that you said that. I love that you the way that you phrase it, whether it's supportive and encouraging in the way that you do it. The same way that we talk about, instead of saying like risk management, we're talking about harm reduction, right? We're using people first language, talking about how these people just aren't at the place of acceptance that a lot of folks are, or not necessarily a lot of folks, just people in general, or people who support sex workers, right?
Just having to things like hide my transness, hide, I have to look, a certain way and have a certain voice, temper, and talk like this because this is way more appealing. Like that kind of thing.
And so having to navigate those identities and trying to code switch, right? When it comes to just being off the clock and then being like, okay, got a client, let's shape it up a little bit. What's it like to code switch? How drastic do you have to get with it?
Super drastic. It's, you're on the phone, take it. You're like, oh yeah, I'm so cute right now. You're in sweatpants.
Right.
You don't have any makeup on. You're straight chilling. You're waiting for the phone to ring, and it finally rang. You have to seem like hi, I'm just so available, and I've been waiting for you all night. And it's like, no, I've been waiting since like 8 this morning, and it's 2 PM. Like, this is a business.
Yeah. Well, I kind of want to go back a little bit more. We're jumping around a lot. Sorry about it. Yeah. But I want to go back to talking about how you mentioned people who just aren't ready, right? When we talk about people who just aren't ready, it kind of goes a little bit bigger than that, right? It's more than just people who aren't ready. Sometimes it can be people in power who are not ready yet, right? Talking about policy changes, discrimination against sex workers within our government, right? So can you explain a little bit about that? Talk a little bit more, shed some light on it,
Sure. You just look at, like, New York is a really great example because they just got theirs passed. They had a law that basically, if you're walking down the street, you can be frisked for anything if they think you look like a sex worker. If they think. There's a lot of states that have condom laws that if they catch you with more than so many condoms in your bag, you could go to jail for that. And the people that get stopped,
I have no idea about.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
That are not privy to like the most people.
It's like, you don't know my life. I'm a freak. I keep 20 condoms. Like,
hello. You don't know how I'm fucking, right?
Yeah, exactly. Benefit of the doubt. But cops, and the people that get frisked the most are people who look like us. You know what I mean? Brown people, South Asian people, North African people. That's who get frisked. They're like, ooh, you're brown. We got to see what we have to see. And so those are the people that are getting incarcerated. And those are the people that are getting tickets. And those are the people that can't find housing. And it's like all these things that we're seeing problems with. Just there's so many, because to deny LGBTQI people, like, is to deny also sex workers, because there's too many of us that are also sex workers, especially if you talk about those of us who are trans and those of us who are gay. There's not like that, especially being trans. Those are the jobs that we can get. Those are the jobs that people will accept us, even if it is from a fetishization point. That's a job that's going to give us money versus another job where we might have to hide ourselves. And so it's just like weighing this out in these places until we can get to a place of privilege. We are activists. Sex workers are activists. All the sex workers I know, they are. They are marching, they're going to meetings. My co-executive director, shout out to them, Phoenix. They work on mostly policy and sit in policy calls and policy meetings all day long because we want to know what's happening. We want to try to help. We want to at least inform people because we can't expect the public to inform themselves at this point.
And I want to go ahead and expand on that as well, right here, right now. What do we need to know about what's going on here locally in the Dallas area, in Texas itself?
Honestly, in Texas right now, it's so strange because of the weather that's happening right now, because it's not 3-digit temperatures. But really, there is a gap in care with a lot of things, and mostly it's to do with health. You look at states like Washington, where you can get top surgery covered under the state. And you go to a place like Texas, and there are wonderful groups like PRISM and the group that Kevin works with in SADI. And there needs to be more and more areas, but there's just not enough because these organizations are already spread so thin. Yeah. They're already doing the best and trying their best and giving their best. But there's so many people. The need is so great.
In terms of policy and things like that, what can folks here or what can folks at home do in order to fight the good fight, bring some power to sex workers, bring some power and some safety, honestly, to the people that are out here putting themselves out there, you know?
Honestly, the best thing that they can do, if they're living in Texas, Austin and Houston, there are SWOP USA chapters that are run by really incredible leaders. They can always use your help and assistance. They're doing outreach. They're trying to help their community and get those goals. And the other places, we just try to expand ourselves as much as we can. There are other groups here that don't work with sex workers, like Dallas Street Medics or a Dallas Bail Fund, you know, the things, or Denton Bail Fund, the things that we're trying to abolish, like cash bail, you know, that helps us, it helps them, helps the community. It's an everybody fight, you know, not just an us fight. And that feels good to have the support of those people too.
Real quick, so I feel like a lot of people, when they hear the word abolish, they're a little thrown off and concerned. What is it that we're wanting to abolish about the cash bail, and why are we, because I know exactly why, but I want to hear from you a little bit more as to what it is and how cash bail, how it limits those who are unable to afford a cash bail.
The way that the Texas system is set up specifically, we need to abolish cash bail, because the people that are getting incarcerated, the bail money and the way the bail bonds work, I don't want to call it a scam, but let's just call it a scam for fun. It's a scam, and it's a scam for the government to continue getting money. And the way that those cash bails work, they end up recycling back out. They're recycled back out to the bail bondsman. You have to pay fees on it. It's akin to the loans that they were giving out to people in cash loans that they give out when you have to go to a cash place to get a loan. They're extremely exorbitant fees. Most people cannot afford them. And because of that, they end up back in prison or back in jail.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the conversation that we had. I really had a great time. Thank you so much for sharing your story as well. We're going to go ahead and bring out our third panelist for the evening, Michele. Hi, Michele. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited. I'm glad to have you here.
Give me that beat though.
This whole thing.
I was waiting to come on here so I could tell you about yourself. Yes.
Well, thank you so much. Before we get started, I do want to go ahead and make a couple of quick announcements on behalf of Prism Health North Texas. If you are looking to have a good time this weekend, come out on down to Texas Latino Pride Fest this Saturday at Reverchon Park in Dallas from 3 p.m. to 9 a.m. That does not sound right. In terms of times, maybe from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. But we're going to go ahead and post the link for that event down in the chat below. So if you're interested in looking at the event for that, go ahead and click that link. Go ahead and check it out. Get some more information about that. We're actually going to be raffling off a little bit later we're going to be raffling off some VIP tickets for the Texas Latino Pride. And with those VIP tickets, you'll be able to get some drinks, some food, and of course, admission into the event itself. As well, that same day, North Texas Pride Come As You Are Festival is going to be this Saturday at the, Sagling House in Plano, Texas from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. We'll also be posting that link in the chat below, so feel free to go ahead and look at that event as well. And of course, if you're looking for testing, if you're looking for PrEP, if you're looking for HRT, hormone replacement therapy, if you're looking for, what else do we do? Treatment for if you're someone who's living with HIV and looking for treatment, or if you're with a provider who you just don't think is doing it for you, come on down to Prism Health North Texas. We have multiple locations. We have a location in South Dallas, we have a location in Oak Cliff, and a location in Oak Lawn, and we are about to open up our brand new location off of Worth Street as well. So feel free to come by, say hi. You can see me in and out of drag, and you can get some PrEP for free as well. So thank you so much for allowing me to have those quick little announcements. And thank you so much, Alexandria, for the conversation. We're going to go ahead and switch into just Michele and I for now, but I will see you in just a moment. Well, hello there, hello there, hello there.
Hello. I'm sorry about my lighting.
Oh, you're fine. My lighting's not the best either. Don't worry
But I
about
can
it.
see you. You are flawless. You hear me?
Well, thank you so much. You're too kind. Let's go ahead and jump into it. You kind of get the rhythm of what's going on here. Let's hear about your story. Let's hear how you got into the field and what it is that you do.
Well, it was, a lot of stuff happened, in my life that, pretty much set me up to being involved in sex work because of some of the things that happened, those traumas that directly impacted how I made decisions in my life. And it pretty much landed me where I was drinking alcohol, abusing drugs, being and I don't mind sharing what the trauma was, and that was I was sexually abused for most of my life, and so that kind of taught me how to, and I hate to say that, but going through that part of my life kind of taught me how to be a sex worker in the end, because it was almost like I was groomed to be, and so at a very young age, I figured out what if I act this way, if I do this certain thing, then I would get this or I would get that as it relates to men. And so I grew up doing that, behaving in that way. And a lot of times people say, oh, it's I was being promiscuous or I was being fast and all that. And it wasn't the case. I was taught that. And nobody ever asked me, Michele, or sat me down and asked me those questions that we would normally ask our children today if they've been touched. I never had those kind of conversations. And, and in my family, we didn't even talk about sex. So that never came up. And so because of the drug usage and me just not loving on me not really, I had very low self-esteem. I was overweight growing up, all those things. It kind of fed that need to escape from reality, escape from the pain that I was feeling most of my life. And it subsequently led me into sex work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing and for opening up about a lot of that. Let's see. So when it comes to sex work, right? Of course, a lot of folks are going to be questioning I feel like a lot of folks, when it comes to talking about sex work, there's a lot of discrimination, right? There's a lot of discrimination. There's a lot of stigma. There's a lot of stereotypes, especially when it comes to our sexual health, right? Can you talk a little bit about your sexual health and how sex work's kind of like impacted that,
Right. And so it has impacted that because you're used to operating a certain way because, again, it's all about getting what you need to fulfill a need. And mine just so happens not only just to have money, but to also have a place over my head and, to kind of help me continue to escape from reality by using drugs and stuff. So those were a lot of the reasons why I was out there anyway. But at the time, this whole new sex work thing, that's all new to me. I was a hoe. That's what I was.
And what is a hoe?
I was a hoe.
Let's define terms.
And that is okay.
Yeah.
And I did what I had to do to survive. And so, but I was a hoe that also had morals because there were some things I just would not do for folks because that's a part of me that I was not willing to give. Yeah. And so I held that sacred. I realized that I couldn't do, if I gave myself completely into this line of work, that I would not have no sense of self. Then I would just really just die. And that was something that I managed to keep just for me. And so when I got involved in relationships and stuff, it wasn't as hard to be in a relationship with somebody, especially if you're having a sexual relationship, because I was able to separate the two. So that was work, and my mind was geared, that was work. And then my mind was, when I'm in a relationship, I'm in a relationship. So it wasn't hard for me to differentiate because, see, remember, I was trained how to do this a long time ago. So it was really easy for me.
Well, there you go.
Mhm.
So we've been talking about this a lot throughout the evening, and we're talking, of course, about race. We're talking
Mhm.
about gender. We're talking about discrimination. Can you talk a little bit about that, those intersections, as being, what are your pronouns?
I am she, her, hers.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
So as someone who identifies as a she, her, female woman, can you talk about the intersection of being a woman and the discrimination of also being a Black woman, right?
Mm-hmm. Doing this line of work, Alexandria was definitely right when she was talking about how there is a lot of racism in when you're involved in doing sex work. You have to be very careful of who you're seen with or even not seen with. There was so many times I was just walking to the store and got stopped by the police because they made the assumption that I was doing something. Now, if you had caught me earlier, you might have gotten me back then. But right now, I'm just going to the store to get me something to eat. But I knew that had a lot to do with the fact that I was Black. Things began to shift because for me, violence for women, for Black folk who are involved in sex work, we are victimized during that time because now, especially when it comes to police officers and people who hold public office, there is an imbalance of power, and so to keep me from going to jail, there were some things I had to do to make sure that didn't happen. Well, then it became to a point where I was dating police officers, sheriffs, city folk, all these kind of people. Either I do it or go to jail, or I do it and they don't pay me, those kind of things, or that I do it and they would pay me, but I was scared that I was going to go to jail or come up missing. So when we talk about, sex work and things like that, we're not only talking about, just the racism aspect, but that unbalance of power and how Black women will be victimized while they're out there on the streets, trying to take care of their business.
Yeah. I kind of want to talk a little bit more about that. And Black women, of course, talking about discrimination of sex workers and sex work, and how the Afiya Center is combating that.
So the Afiya Center, basically, the Afiya Center, our goal is to transform the sexual and reproductive relationship of Black women and girls to address those systems of oppression that creates reproductive oppression, right? And it impedes on Black women's rights to reach full body or obtain full body autonomy. And so for us, when we're looking at how we know that sex work is work, period. It is work, period. We understand that when sex work became illegal, when Black women got involved in it, when they realized it was, and we understand that, right?
The second a Black woman, the second a person of color gets involved, they're like, wrap it up. No more fun for anyone else.
Exactly. It's over. It's a wrap, because at the end of the day, people of color are the ones who are most fantasized about. So we do get the money, right? But in the same aspect, we also get treated as though we are slaves, and we're under the power of the master. And so that's where that whole racism thing comes in, right? And so the Afiya Center, our goal is to decriminalize sex work and to have these conversations with legislators about, how do we address those systems of oppression that creates those opportunities or create those risks for women to have to go out on the street to make sure their ends meet, right? Providing a livable, thrivable wage, having access to healthcare. And we believe that sex workers should have the same thing. They should have access because it's work. And if we decriminalize it, folks need to have health insurance. Folks need to be able to pay taxes on that. On what they do, that there are, and it's done in a safe way and create opportunities and spaces where women who are involved in sex work or folk who are involved in sex work can be safe and be able to take care of themselves. And if they have children, to have childcare, all those things that what would normally happen if I was working a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
That should happen for sex workers. Period.
It absolutely should. We need benefits. Come on, give us the.
Come on.
This pussy needs benefits, baby. Come on.
You better. You
give
better.
us the benefits.
Yes, exactly. And so we are really talking to our legislators on what that could look like. And we also go out into the community and speak to our gals and our folk about, making sure that they have everything they need. We create hoe bags. They love hoe bags.
What goes into a hoe bag?
It goes, we Plan Bs, condoms.
I love that. Plan B. Plan B.
Yes.
Girl,
yes. They was chasing us down for them.
And where can we get this again? Where can we get this, especially now that we live in a state where abortion is no longer accessible for a lot of folks after 6 weeks, right?
Right, that's right.
Where can we get this?
So I will hook you up, because you definitely can come to the Afiya Center. We will. Well, you really can't come to the Afiya Center, but I will be sending out information of where you can meet us at, and that we can provide the bags that people need to have: panties, toiletries. Make sure you're clean, makeup brushes. Like I said, Plan Bs, deodorant, what do you call it? Wet ones, sanitizer, tampons, Kotex, and also one of the things I was telling everybody, especially those kitchen sponges where you cut up, because they're, when administration happens, that don't mean work stop. You can just take one of them sponges, insert it, and you good for about an hour until you have to go,
Okay.
That's an old hoe trick.
Yeah, that's an old trick right there.
That's an old hoe trick. And so
that is an old trick.
Yeah, we make sure that you have all that you need to be able.
I love that. Y'all really are the one-stop shop, huh?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Y'all really are the one-stop shop.
Definitely. And we give them information, like I leave my information, and if they decide that, hey, I'm ready to do something different, and this is like no shame, no nothing. Get your money up, whatever. But if ever you decide that you want to do something different, come talk to us, and we can get you connected to the services to even help pay for your tickets or anything that you have going on, from being out there to where you can actually go back, so you can get into transitional home and take care of whatever you need.
Yeah, y'all are really out here doing the work. A lot of people say that they're doing the work, but the Afiya Center is really out here doing the work.
And we are really out here doing the work. Oh yeah.
I love
most
that.
Definitely. Oh, most definitely. We go out there and make sure they have food to eat, just saying, hey, whatever we need to do, that's what we're gonna do.
So it sounds like y'all do a lot of work. What can we do to help assist in that? How can we assist in some policy changes here at the local and state level? What is it that we as just people here need to, how can we get involved? What can we do?
So definitely lend us your voice, when we make the call out for folk to be able to, testify at public hearings and stuff, let's just say, don't be afraid, because at the end of the day, they work for us. We don't work for them, right? And it's
let them know it too. Let them know it.
and as long as you're, a part of the process, and you're being able to share your stories, because a lot of times, a lot of these legislators are far removed from what's really happening on the ground, and it takes real people to help shift and change or create policy for the betterment of folk who, a lot of times, these systems keep us oppressed so much that we can't catch a break.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so definitely, anytime there's an action, if there's a call out, get involved. Even if you can't do that, we are always in need of, toiletries, all that stuff to continue to create our whole bags. We need pregnancy tests, whatever the need is. If you guys can do that and you just call the office and we can find a way to meet you and pick the stuff up, that's still help. That is still financially. If you want to donate, that all those things help. And then, but it also allows us the ability to be able to say on the ground, this is what's happening on the ground, and we've got to do something to change these systems, because women should not have to decide to between eating, taking care of their kids, and not having a job.
Yeah,
that's going to pay to be able to do both of them. And sometimes I gotta do something strange to make a little change to make that happen. That should not happen. It should not happen. And even if I do want to do what I do, there should be a something that's going to help me balance all that out and keep me safe.
I love that. Sadie, get those typing fingers ready, because I'm going to have you type something out for me real quick. But if you could go ahead and tell us that number of that number, Michele, that we can go ahead and call to donate anything, whether it's money or any goods that we might have, or any Ho products that we can add in. What's that number?
So the number to the Afiya Center is 972-629. I always get the number wrong. 9266. 972-629-9266. And you can email us at info@theafiyacenter.org.
Awesome. Sadie, did you get all that? I hope you did. Sadie's one of our producers backstage, y'all. Well, thank you so much, Michele. Right now, let's go ahead and bring in the rest of our speakers, if they're ready and available, of course. Awesome. Hi, everyone. Thank y'all so much.
Hi, Michele.
Hi, baby.
Hey, Michele.
Hey, Alexandria, you're gorgeous.
Thank you. I was over here like clacking while you were talking. I was like, yes, Michelle's spitting right now.
Well, I want to take a quick little pause. And before we go ahead and jump into our final conversations, our final discussions, we're going to do a quick little raffle, everyone. So get ready, listen up. So whoever the first commenter is, that's the first commenter, the first person to put the answer in the comments to the question that I'm about to ask. Earlier in the conversation, Kevin and I were talking about PrEP, right? So right now, if you were listening, what is the efficacy rate of taking PrEP? Like, how efficient is PrEP going to be able in order to prevent you from contracting HIV as long as you take it daily? What was that percentage? The first person in the comments is going to go ahead and win two VIP tickets for Texas Latino Pride. So the first person to comment. Anyone?
Y'all got this.
Y'all, I know y'all got this. I know y'all were listening. And if we need, we can do a multiple choice. Kimber, really close, really close. Let's go a little up. Anyone else want to take a guess?
They don't want me to get in this chat.
Y'all must not want these tickets. 95. Micah McDaniel.
Yes.
Micah McDaniel with a 99%. That is the answer that we are looking for. As long as PrEP is taken daily, it is going to be 99% effective, of course. There are other ways that you can take PrEP, of course, but we're always going to recommend taking it daily so you can get the max amount of protection against HIV. So, Micah, if you want to go ahead and give us a message, give us a little DM. I'm trying to see how we can do that, actually. But go ahead and give us a message or give us a DM on our Facebook page and let us know with your contact information. We'll go ahead and get those tickets out to you, okay? So thank you so much for the quick little raffle. And thank y'all so much for the conversation. Let's have some closing thoughts. Let's have some closing conversations. So what did y'all think? How's everything going?
I loved it. Michele, I just want to say, you reminded me of something when you were talking about trauma and something that I wasn't able to disclose because I was so caught up in, a lot of things. But I just want to tell you that it's such a powerful thing to talk about. And I'm so proud of you because I know you and I love you. And I know that this can be very difficult, especially for Black women. And I'm fighting for you. And I need you to know that. And if there's anything that I can do to utilize my privilege and to make life easier for people like you in Alexandria, please let me know. I would love to. I also haven't told anybody this, but I am actually working on an initiative called North Texas Alliance for Sex Workers. So if anybody out there is wanting to get involved and that's driven to help create change here in North Texas, please reach out to me. I would love to do anything to make change happen. And initiative that I am currently working on is policies and procedures to implement into nonprofit organizations to prevent from discrimination in the workplace, in even corporations. And to be a part of that alliance, you have to meet the qualifications that I have a list of. So you can get that little stamp saying that you will not discriminate against sex workers, you will not hinder sex workers in their progress to leadership, and you will provide leadership roles to people that have had to rely on sex work to survive and to make a living wage. No one should ever tell you that you do not qualify for a leadership role because you had to access the living wage the way that you had to access it. No one should ever have control over you in that way. No one should ever tell you that you can't sit at the table, that you can't utilize your voice, because your voice is more important than the people that are in power right now. And let's change it up.
Hello. Let's make some waves. Let's make some splashes. Let's make some change going on.
Support your sex workers. Support them.
I'm telling you something right now, because I was listening and I was like, I could not wait for y'all to come back on. Because I was like, damn, they got phones. We had to chunk rocks if we want to get on that.
Listen,
we had to bleed the block. What does you mean?
I used to carry sand around in my purse, Michele.
Like, see,
really?
I razor blades in my mouth.
You get with that sand like you a wizard.
Yeah.
See, y'all got the tips and tricks over here.
Yeah. I had to, it used to be the police. There was no phone. You know what I'm saying? So the game has truly changed a lot for the better. And it is a good thing that there are phones and there are, now that folk have created a safe place and made it safer for women to do what they need to do to survive, period. Sex work is work. Period.
So I completely forgot when I was yammering. You know how it is. But SWOP USA, we have a hotline. It's run by a dedicated team of folks. I'm dropping it in our chat, so
perfect.
I can drop it in their chat. It doesn't matter where you are as long as it's the United States, and we help people with resources. Sometimes it's something that's like local. Usually all the local stuff goes to me, but now that I know that there's little help tendrils, I'm looking at you, Michele, look at it. Then I know I have other people to call on, but there are, like I said, there's chapters all around the United States. And even if there's a state that doesn't have a chapter, it doesn't mean we won't help you. We definitely will, especially if there's another organization that we know and are close with, and we know that they have the thing that you need. We're not competing. We're happy to make that connection and make sure that you are taken care of before you're sent somewhere else, not just here, go here, and then no follow-up.
Yes, that's something that I've noticed happen, not in just sex work, but in healthcare in general. It's just that pass-off is so terrible. There's a reason why there's such a mistrust in healthcare, and it's specifically that. And it doesn't take much to hold someone's hand to help someone get to safety. And I wish that our society could have a bigger heart, be more empathetic about the things that we all experience, because sex work is one thing. It's not just black and white. There's so many other things going on in the world that impact us all in different ways. And if we could all just come together and collaborate and have these collaborations, and the more and more we have, the better. It's not like what Alexandria said. There's no competition. There's nothing to compete against. We're competing against each other at that point, because at the end of the day, all we want to do is support each other and survive, right?
Yeah,
Right.
because when it
Absolutely.
comes to December 17th, and that's the Sex Worker Memorial Day, no organization is like, well, I'm going to take well, it's me who does it's no, we're all mourning together. It's Memorial Day together for everyone we've lost, not just that year, but years past. And we all just kind of hold each other on that day because that's what we do all year round anyway. But we really hold each other on December 17th. And it's nice to know that, I can reach out to somebody, or that they can even use that hotline number, even if you just need somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what it's there for.
Well, listening to everything that everyone's been saying, thank y'all so much for the conversation. I've really enjoyed it, and I'm sure that our audience has as well. Can we go ahead and talk about some resources or drop resources that we might know of, that people who are looking for sex work resources, or for people who just might need them in general, Can we go ahead and get some of that information out there to the public?
So a lot of times, if you have like tickets that you need to take care of, or as it relates to those new, I call them nuisance tickets. They call them prostitution tickets. They're nuisance tickets. That's just something to create a number for you so they can keep picking your ass up. But if you want to get rid of those, you literally can go to the in Dallas. There is a community court that they have at the Martin Luther King Center that can help you get rid of some of those tickets. I don't know the exact number of it, but I'm sure that you should be able to find it online. It's a community court. It's in the Martin Luther King Center.
Yes. If you are any gender that can get pregnant, the T Fund, I'm dropping it, TEAFUND, and they are at T Fund on Instagram and Twitter. They are run by a Black executive director. I know to some people that doesn't make a difference, but it should to you. It should be special. But they can help you with anything within your 6 weeks. They can also help you with out-of-state needs. They are wonderful folks, and especially with North Texas Giving Day amongst us, they are trying to continue the great work that they're doing. They are awesome, awesome people, and your gender is irrelevant as far as needing help. If you are a gender that can get pregnant, if you are a person that can get pregnant, non-binary or otherwise, please contact T-Fund. They're amazing for any kind of help in that regard as far as abortion is concerned.
And also, I'm just coming to terms with being confident in my story and, starting my own initiatives and things. So I've dropped my contact information, my personal contact information. If anybody ever needs someone to talk to or someone to lean on, you can talk to me directly at 469-363-7455. And also, there is a resource online that I think has really helped people, not just with sex work specifically, but with an abundance of different resources, and it's findhelp.org. Findhelp.org has things that you can access with help for transportation to pay your utilities, healthcare access, abortion access. It has a plethora of different resources that you can find and directly link yourself to. So if you're working in different positions and in different organizations, provide that to the clients that you serve, because it's really helped the community here in Dallas.
Thank you. And of course, you can always reach out to the Afiya Center for any, we can connect you to the services that you need. We do provide, again, support if you're needing bills paid. We still do mutual aid. I don't think we'll ever stop with doing that piece of work because our folk need it. Again, you can reach us at 972-629-9266. Or you can email us at info@theafiyacenter.org. Or if you just in need of some hoe bags, we got you on that too.
All righty.
All right.
Hello.
I also just want to say one more thing, and I'll get off my soapbox, I promise. But from personal experience, if you know, you or anyone you know has ever suffered from discrimination from the community or from anybody in your life, a word of advice is to don't be reactive to it, but be proactive in who you are, and challenge the people that are discriminating against you, push back. Like I said earlier, no one should tell you that you don't qualify for anything or services because of your means of accessing a living wage. Also, one more thing that I would like to advise people: if you are white and you are not utilizing your privilege to fight for your Black and brown brothers and sisters and gender nonconforming individuals, you're not doing your job. And I need you to know that you need to fight for us and fight for people that are fighting the fight for you. And if you're not doing that, I'm sorry, you're not doing enough. And you need to step it up because people are tired. And white people, you just gotta pick it up, baby. You just gotta.
I love the call to action. I love the call to action. Well, thank y'all again. Thank y'all so much, everyone. So it looks like our raffle, our winner was unable to make it for the event. So Kimber Fox, as our second person to get that percentage, if you'd like to go ahead and DM us with your information, we can go ahead and get those tickets to you as well. Okay. But thank you again, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us in this conversation and for being so vulnerable enough to have these conversations. Y'all are fantastic. Y'all are amazing. I love y'all so much. If you are looking for gender affirming care, if you're looking for just affirming care in general, if you need any HIV testing services or STI testing services as well, treatment, things like that, or any HIV care, come on down to Prism Health North Texas. We've got multiple locations in Oaklawn, Oak Cliff, South Dallas, and Worth Street. So thank you again, and thank you everyone in the comments and who is watching for having a productive and helpful conversation. I look forward to the next time we get to do this, and I hope that we get to kiki another time soon.
All right. I can't wait.
It's so nice.
Well, thank you again, everyone. Thank y'all so much. Y'all have a great night. And that's it. That's a wrap here.
Don't forget, everybody, support your sex workers.
Hello, support your sex workers.
We love you.
Bye.
Bye.